Hello everybody. This is session 3. This was meant to be an in-class session, but as I mentioned, it turned out that I had a requirement that made me unable to attend the in-class session. So we will conduct this as an online session, and then we as a class will determine if we want to have one of the other online sessions converted to an in-class session in order for us to have the balance that we need, and for us to for me to be able to provide to you the support that you may need for any of the deliverables or any of the exercises or any of the questions that you might have. So we'll take care of that, but for now let's go ahead and get started. Today's session is session 3. It begins with the quiz. I have sent out separate instructions for how to take the quiz, and then we will, after the quiz, refer to the remaining slides in this presentation. We'll do a deliverables overview, and we'll also talk about web browser content. So these slides cover the concepts of the third session. Some of the slides are repeats from class 1 and class 2. But we'll go into much more detail today. We'll also do exercises today that will help you toward the competency that you will need in order to do the deliverables. So here we go. As I said, this is straight from the syllabus. So let's talk about HTML. We're talking about how the browser works, and the three things that are really key to how browsers render content that our viewers see on the website, that technical writers provide for viewers, customers, visitors on the websites. It all starts off with HTML. HTML is Hypertext Markup Language. It's a W3C World Wide Web Consortium open standard to create web pages and its elements looks like there's a typo there, to create a web page and its elements from building blocks of all websites. It's at this URL. Browsers use HTML as their native file format. HTML 2.0 passed in November of 1995. Wow, long time ago. And XHTML, XML, Hypertext Markup Language 1.0 passed in January of 2000. And then a big milestone was when HTML5 came out, and that was October of 2014. Still a while ago, but that was a big milestone. HTML can be simple. The following text serves as HTML. And if we view it in a browser, it looks like HTML. So I'm going to pause here, and I'm going to call this our first exercise. So what I'm going to ask that you do is you, after you watch these instructions, basically I'm going to ask that you, for this exercise, escape from this slideshow, or from pause this video, and then create a new text file, and then type in or copy and paste these HTML elements, and then save it as my HTML, and then open it in a browser. So we'll do that right now. I'll demonstrate that. So I'm going to escape this slideshow. Remember, we had from the last exercises we had in class 2, we created this WT4CP directory. Please go into that directory, or that file, folder, and create a new folder. I right-clicked, and I'm going to click Folder, and I'm going to call it HTML. Okay. And so then I'm going to go into that folder, and in Windows you can right-click and create a new text file. That's what I'm going to do here. In Mac, it's a little bit more. There's a little bit more to it than that. You actually have to create the new text file with a text editor. I'll be happy to go over that if that's difficult for anybody. This is a new laptop here, so I'm going to set my properties to show extensions. Let's see here. I think that's in advanced. I'm kind of doing this, like I always say, unless I make an egregious mistake, I'm just going to continue on. Let's see here. Advanced settings. No? Well, you're going through a little Windows exercise because it's been so long since I've done this that I'm not remembering exactly how to do it. So why don't I go into my Windows system. It's in settings. No, maybe not. Here we go. Good old Windows. Okay, File, Explorer Options. Display, path and title. I guess I'll take that. I guess I want that. I guess I want that. There we go. That will probably do it. Okay, so that was a fun little exercise. Let's see if it actually did. It sure did. Okay. Well, how about that? That was not expected to be part of this exercise. But I think I'll leave it in. Like I said, unless I make an egregious mistake, I'm going to just pile on, or plow on. Okay, so now I'm going to change this to my HTML. .html, okay. So I'm going to change it to my HTML .html. I'm going to save that, and then I'm going to open my text editor. In this case, we have I'm using Notepad++, which is what I recommend for Windows. For Mac, I recommend Text Wrangler, which is now BBE, or is it BBE? I think it is. It's well, Sublime Text, or what does BBE stand for? Text Wrangler changed to BBE. So those are the two that I recommend for Mac. So in the Windows, you just drag the my HTML into the browser, and now we see that it's my HTML. And I'm going to refer to my instructions here. I'm actually going to just copy from here. I'm going to press Shift, and I'm going to arrow down, and I'm going to make sure that I don't get that, that I only get the remaining, that I don't get an extra carriage return. I'm going to Control C in Windows. It's Command C or Apple C on the Mac, and Control V, and I'm going to save that. And then I'm just going to double click it here, and it's going to open in a browser. I'll open it in Chrome, and indeed it says it's a nicely rendered HTML file. Nothing fancy about it yet. It's plain vanilla, but we'll do something about that. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that up, and I have satisfied the first step of the exercise. I'm going to minimize this, and then I'm going to continue on. So we did see these results. That was good. Let's talk about adding some style. So that plain vanilla HTML is very vanilla and very, very plain. The way we would add some style to it would be through CSS. CSS stands for Cascading Style Sheets. It's a W3C World Wide Web Consortium open standard. It's at this URL. It's a CSS is a style sheet language for assigning presentation characteristics to web pages. The World Wide Web Consortium maintains a CSS validation service here at this URL. And that's just to make sure that your CSS is valid. We won't go into that. So you can have internal or external CSS. You can associate a CSS to HTML file internally using the style elements or externally using the link element. So let's demonstrate both of those. And again, I'm going to ask you then to do an exercise. In this exercise, we will use the internal methods for both CSS and JavaScript, but I will also show you the process for using the external. So I'm going to escape from here, and I'm going to ask you to do an exercise. I'm going to ask you to call up the HTML file that you made in the earlier exercise, and I'm going to ask you then to copy the style element. So we're going to put our cursor at the end of style, and we're going to arrow up, arrow, 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 all the way to the beginning. Now I'm going to arrow left to the beginning of the style element. And I'm going to Control-C, copy, and I'm going to go back to my text editor, and I'm going to go right, oh, actually I need to do a little bit more. I see that I didn't have my head element, so let's put the cursor to the end of the head element. Let's arrow up until we get to the greater than sign in the head element, and then let's just arrow left, and let's copy that. In Windows it's Control-C. Then I'm going to go back to my text editor, and right after my HTML tag, I'm going to make sure that it's to the right of that greater than, or we call it angle in programming. I'm going to press my Enter key, and I'm going to space once, and I'm going to Control-V, which is paste, and now I have the head element within my HTML file, which has a style element, which then says for body, let's make the background color light blue, and for H1 let's make the color blue, and let's make the margin 50 points left, or 50 pixels left. So we have an H1 and we have a body, so we should, oh, we don't have a body. So let's also go in and put our body tags in. So then after the head tag, I'm going to hit a single return or enter, and I'm going to type angle, B-O-D-Y, angle, and then at the end of my paragraph tag, I'm going to hit a return or an enter, and I'm going to backspace so that I'm aligned. This is just to make it align with the open tag. I'm going to press angle slash B-O-D-Y, angle. And so sure enough, now I have a body tag which will satisfy this cascading style sheet direction, and I have an H1 tag which will satisfy this H1 tag instruction. So I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to go back to my browser, and I'm just going to refresh it, and we see that the offset did work, the H1 styling did work, and the background did work. So hopefully you were able to follow along and complete that exercise. Okay, so let's continue. That's how we do it internally. You can also do it, it's more common to do it externally, which would be then to just put a link element into your head tag and then tell it that its type is text/CSS, and then make a reference to the external style sheet. So in this case, we would have this in our head, and we would actually create an external style sheet with the same content as we put into our internal file, and then we would just save it as myski.css. So if it's called myski.css and it has the same instructions, if I page back up, then we will link to that external cascading style sheet and it'll have the same effect. So then if we were to view it in the browser, we would see that indeed we have the desired results. Okay, so then let's talk about JavaScript. JavaScript is an ECMA, European Computer Manufacturers Association, open standard for programming web pages. What do I mean by programming? The file we have there is flat, but if we wanted to do things, we would use JavaScript to get it to do things. So similar to cascading style sheets, you can have external or internal JavaScripts. You can associate a JavaScript to an HTML file internally using the script tags, or externally using the script element and the source attribute. So again, in our exercise we'll do internal, but I'll also demonstrate how to do it externally. So here we have some internal JavaScript. Everything in the head element within this script element is what we are interested in, and we'll also have to put an ID on our paragraph, and we'll have to create a button. And I think that the text that we have won't make as much sense, so we might even change that a little bit. Let's go ahead and do that for our next exercise. So after you watch these instructions, I will ask you to pause the video and to do the same thing that I'm doing here. So to start off with, I'm going to put my cursor at the very end of the script close tag, and I'm going to hold my shift key down and arrow up, arrow up, arrow up, arrow up to the end of the open tag. Then I'm going to arrow left to just get the script element, and I'm going to do Control C to copy that onto my clipboard. Then I'm going to go back into my head, and I'm going to go to my HTML file, head element I should say, and to the right of the open tag I'm just going to do enter, and then I'm going to do a space, and I'm going to do Control V to paste, and I now have a script tag that has my instruction, my JavaScript instruction, and I have a function in here called mySwitcher, and it says to get the element by ID, so we need an element ID of ski1, and we need to change whatever it says to something that is different, and then we'll also have to put a button in there. So let's make this file make a little bit more sense. So rather than hello world, let's change that to skiing is fun. And let's change the text to let's ski exclamation point. I see a little typo there I need to fix. Let's ski exclamation point. Let's fix this typo. And then let's put an ID. Remember when we talked about XML in class 2, we said that there can be elements and attributes. In this case, I'm going to put the cursor just to the right of the P. I'm going to space, and then I'm going to say ID equals, and I'm going to do quote, and I'm going to say SKI -1, and then I'm going to close quote. I used double quotes here. You could also use single quote. So now we have a paragraph tag with an ID matching ski, so that should solve this, that should resolve to this direction, and we have an alternate text that's going to show up that says skiing is expensive. I'm also going to just copy this button, so I'm going to put my cursor to the right of the button close tag, and I'm just going to arrow left all the way to the start tag angle. And then I'm going to Control C to put it on my clipboard, and then I'm going to go to my paragraph tag. I'm going to press enter or return and Control V to paste that in there. I need to remember to save it. So now in my HTML file in my browser, I'm going to refresh, and indeed it changed the words the way we wanted it to, and it says let's ski. But there's a button here now that says, but you should know. So if I click that button, it changed the text to skiing is expensive. So we've seen now how JavaScript can do stuff. That's a technical term for it, doing stuff. Okay, so let's, hopefully you were able to complete the exercise and you got the desired results as well. If not, please let me know and I'll be happy to walk you through. So let's go back into our presentation mode. Oops. Okay, we viewed it in the browser and it did do the expected result. You can also do this externally by using the same script element and just saying src source is switch.javascript, but you would need to put the function in a file called switch.js, and it would indeed cause the same stuff, as I've been saying, to happen. Okay, so let's then, and then you view it in the browser, and skiing is fun, but skiing is expensive. So it indeed does work. So those are the exercises. That's what I will be asking you to do in this class. Hint, hint, the cascading style sheet exercise that you've just completed and the JavaScript exercise that you've just completed, along with the exercises you did last week in class, in the XML class 2, which were about creating an XML file and then using HTML to turn it into, using XSLT to convert it or transform it into HTML. Put those things together, and that will be how you will do one of the deliverables. So let's talk about the requirements for the deliverables. I will create a subsequent video that actually walks you through all of the deliverables step by step. So you should be able to complete the deliverables that way. I will also more than likely have a session in class. Remember, we talked about the class sessions will go a certain length, and then we will have optional extra time at the end of the class where I will actually walk through each of the deliverables and give you the opportunity to do them step by step with me. But let's just talk about requirements for now. Deliverables, in academic terms, we might call them projects, but in the business world, we call them deliverables. The first deliverable is D1, and it will involve XML, XSL, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Hint, hint, the things we just went over in class 1 and class 2. In D2, deliverable 2, you will use the easyDITA component content management system, which you will receive from me an email that has your credentials, your login credentials, and an account to create a data sheet. And then D3 will be to create a Drupal website using the free version of Acquia. So let's go through the details. First of all, the dates and the maximum points. D1 will be due, these dates are not correct. I need to update these, roughly these dates, but I'll put the actual. Let's pay more attention to the maximum points. You get 10 points for D1, 10 points for D2, and 20 points for D3. So let's look at the requirements for D1. As I said, you'll be using XML, XSL, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. So the requirements to earn these 10 points, you'll need to be able to demonstrate that you are able to add elements and content into an XML file using text editor, resulting in a well-formed XML file. And if you complete that, that will give you 1 point. You'll need to modify an XSLT to process the added element and content. And if you're able to do that, you will get 2 points. Then you'll need to process the modified XML file from step 1 with the modified XSLT from step 2 using an XML processor with the command line, transforming that XML file to an HTML file, and that will give you 1 point. So that's basically what we did in class 2. Now to receive the remaining points, you'll have to do what we did in class 3, what we just did, and that is to create a CSS file that will, 1, set the background color to some color, you'll get 1 point for that, and set the italic text to some color, and to do that you'll get 1 point. Then you will need to associate the HTML file you created in step 3 with a CSS you created in step 4. You can do that either internally or externally. It's up to you. And then the next requirement will be to create a JavaScript file that can change a line of text to another line of text, just like we saw skiing is fun, but beware it's expensive. If you're able to do that, that'll be 1 point. You'll need to add a button that to the HTML that you created in step 3 that invokes the JavaScript you created in step 6. That'll be worth 1 point. And then you'll have to make the button work. That will be 1 point. You'll get 3 extra credit points if you can make the JavaScript button bidirectional to change the text to one thing and then back to another. We might go over that in class. I haven't decided yet. So that's it. If you do all of those things, and I've just demonstrated how to do that in class 1 and class 2 and class 3, you will get the all 10 points and possibly 13 points if you do the extra JavaScript work there. Okay, so then let's talk about D2. D2 is to create an easyDITA data sheet. These are just the requirements. I'm not going to demonstrate yet. I will demonstrate in subsequent videos and class time. So to get the 10 points for D2, you will need to create a new product data sheet. You will use, there's an example that I have there in that URL in the first bullet there that is a good go by. And by a go by, I mean it has the elements that you'll be creating in easyDITA, but you will need to use your own words and have fun and be creative with it. So the evaluation method is that each required part, which will be specified in this file, steps 1 through 5, will be worth 2 points. Each missing or incomplete compiled output will reduce the score by 1 point. So you'll have the opportunity to make a total of 10 points. The delivery method, the ones that I'm referring to, the possible incomplete compiled output, will be to publish the output in easyDITA. I'll ask you to publish it in HTML and in PDF. The outputs will be in your repository, and you just tell me they're there, and I will be able to retrieve them to evaluate your work. So as I said, we will use this data sheet at that URL as our go-by, and then I also have an example, a sample in the easyDITA Unit Z repository. I'll give you access, and I'll demonstrate that, so you can actually look at the code that I did to help you to create your code. Okay, so the required parts are the ones that are highlighted. So you'll need to create a title and a subtitle, to put an image in there, to put a paragraph after your image, to create a heading and first order bulleted list, unordered bulleted list, and two second order bulleted lists. And you'll need to repeat that 2 times with just first order bulleted unordered lists, and then you'll need to create 2 sections, each of which will have a title, each of which will have a paragraph. Part 2 requirements will be, this is not in the example or the go-by data sheet, but I'll ask you to actually use a task element in order to create the task, and it'll just be an installation procedure. Just use words that make sense to you, that will be creative and go nicely with the data sheet that you will create with your own words and your own concepts. Just need to have a title and a paragraph, and then a set of steps, and then a resolving paragraph. And then and it'll look something like this. It'll be the task body, and we'll go over how to do all of these things. Part 3 will be to create specifications. This will most likely be done in the, using the DITA topic that it will be most appropriate. When we have our DITA class, that will become apparent to you. So you will need to have a heading, a paragraph, and then probably a table that gives the physical characteristics, in this case, with some headings, some descriptions, and then values. And then you'll need to do 2 sets of those. So those will be required. Part 4 will be to create some kind of ordering information, again using tables or the most appropriate DITA elements. And then part 5 will be to use a conref. This is single sourcing and reuse. This is one of the very strengths of DITA. I will again go over this, but essentially you will be inserting a reference, a content reference to an external topic that will provide some information that you will then need to reference into your ordering information. And we will go over exactly how to do that. And there will be a specific DITA topic that I will ask you to conref, using conref as a verb, into your data sheet. And then your required outputs will be PDF, HTML, or XHTML. You'll publish each of these in easyDITA, and the outputs will be in your repository. I will retrieve them and evaluate your work. Okay, so that's D2. If you do all of those steps successfully, you will get all of the points that are available in that project. And finally, D3, we will actually create a Drupal website. We will create a website using Acquia Cloud, Drupal 8 web content management system that includes a home page, a product page, and the datasheet that you created in D2. At least one page must have functional CSS, so you will have done that in D1, so you'll have some functional CSS, and at least one page must have functional JavaScript. So you will be, in order to get points, you will need to demonstrate that you are able to sign up for the Acquia account. You'll get 2 points for that. Build a home page. You'll get 2 points for that. Create a block. That's a specific Drupal element to be used as a sidebar. And again, I'll give you complete instructions on how to do this and demonstrate and give you class time to actually do the project. That'll be worth 2 points. You'll need to create a new content type. This is something in DITA. A content type is almost, you could say, advanced web tools, advanced content management systems. I'll give you a very introductory way to do that, but by doing so, you will be demonstrating some impressive proficiency in content management systems. Again, you'll get 2 points for that. Create a product page, you'll get 2 points. That's create a products, plural, page, and then a product page, each of which will give you 2 points. Link the product page to the products page, you'll get 2 points for that. Create a link to a PDF datasheet, you'll get 2 points for that. Add CSS to at least one page, you'll get 2 points for that. And add JavaScript to at least one page, you'll get 2 points for that. So that's it. That's how you will be evaluated for your 3 deliverables, D1, D2, and D3. If you have any questions about any of these, please let me know. As I said, I will provide class time to demonstrate each of these deliverables, and I will give you ample opportunity to succeed. When we meet again, we will talk about my offer to make one of the future online classes into an in-class session in order to make up for the time that unfortunately I was not able to provide you for class 3, which was scheduled to be an in-session class, but unfortunately I was not able to, I was called away, so unfortunately it will not be an in-session class, but we'll make up for that. Thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed this class. Hope you did well on your quizzes. If you have any questions on the quiz, please let me know, and I will be happy to help you out with those as well. Thank you. See you later.